Thanks, Christine.
Yeah.
All right. What's the weakest finger in your hand? The weakest, come on, let me see them. Weakest finger in your hand. Yes, the baby finger, right? And what's the most popular letter of the alphabet? Everybody. Hey, that's right. So tell me this. Why is it that the original designers of the keyboard chose to put the most popular letter A in that awkward position way over on the other side of the keyboard and struck by the weakest finger? Why did they do that? Does anybody know? To slow it down, that's exactly right. So the original designers of the keyboard were working on a mechanical typewriter, right? And so the original design had the popular letters in easy-to-get-to places. So what they did is the typists all became really good at it, and all the letters jammed up. So they moved the popular letters to hard-to-get-to places so they could slow the typists down. Well, we have electronics. We've had electric keyboards forever, and digital keyboards, and yet we still continue to keep that legacy process of that old keyboard. And why do we do that? Well, it's not just because we don't want to change. I think it's because we have kind of a blindness to it. We become so used to it. And there's a term for that kind of blindness, and it's called a scotoma. And a scotoma is a medical term which means tunnel vision, but it's also a psychological term that means failure to see what's before our very eyes, a scotoma. And I believe that all transformation and innovation occurs when we can peel away that scotoma and see things in a completely different sort of way. So this topic is about digital transformation. It is really a buzzword. So I have a quiz for you as well. I have some props here. See if I get there. Does anybody know what this thing is? I'm surprised. Does anybody know what this is? He says no. It's an 8-track tape. Remember that? Do you still use it? Somebody uses an 8-track tape, right? Well, this is an analog device, right? So what replaced the 8-track tape? Well, the cassette did, that's right. But also, the CD replaced it, right? What is this? Do you never know what this thing is? Remember this? A Sony, well, it's not a Walkman. Actually, this is a Sony Discman, right? The Sony Discman uses a CD. Now, the tape was analog, and this is what? Digital. So I'll ask you this question. Is this digital, or the movement from the 8-track and the cassette to CD, was that digital transformation? There's only 2 answers. No, it wasn't. What was digital transformation, though? Spotify, exactly, or Alexa. Because it reminds me, I had to go, I really wanted to hear this song called Got to Get You Into My Life. Everybody know what that song is? Who does that? Who? No, the Beatles, right? So I couldn't remember what album it was on. So I went into the garage and I poked through the boxes of all CDs, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't remember what album it was on. So I said, why am I doing this? Why don't I simply go to what? Alexa and say, play Got to Get You Into My Life, or whatever song. So the idea is that when we went from 8-track to CDs, we had these things, right? Cabinets and stuff like that. So the behavior really when we went to CD was really no different. Whether we had a cabinet for CDs or whether we had a cabinet for 8-tracks or cassettes or something, our behavior was the same. So we were actually not experiencing digital transformation. We were experiencing what I like to call digital transition. And that really is an incremental change. And I believe our industry has been going through that sort of digital transformation, a digital transition rather. And there's some really great examples of digital transformation versus digital transition. Remember those triptychs that you used to use? I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember those. I do. But you think about this company called Waze. They've really transformed the business. Sure, they use GPS to kind of figure out where you are in traffic and so forth, but they've gone much further. For example, I was going on a trip to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I just put in Baseball Hall of Fame, and it kind of told me where I was going. But then it said, oh, and there is a souvenir shop along the way. How did they know that? They knew that I was going there. So they were using really information, crowdsourced information, and all kinds of information to transform the way I think about driving. And of course, everybody knows the story about Uber. I was in Japan recently, and they don't have Uber there. So I had to go out in the street, and it was kind of raining like it is now, and I had to go capture a cab. Well, Uber has taken that idea of a cab coming to you, or you going to a cab, and transforming the idea from a cab coming to you. They used a platform to change that whole idea. So Uber is a great example. And of course, the granddaddy of all digital transformation is the iPhone, isn't it? Now, I was thinking about all of the things that the iPhone replaced. This morning, as the alarm went off and I had to get up and I was kind of groggy and I don't really know where the light switch was in my hotel room. So what did I use? I used my iPhone as a flashlight. I mean, it's transformed literally, cameras and encyclopedias and exercise machines. So the idea of digital transformation is not just about technology, but about behavior. So really, I think there are three elements of digital transformation: technology, workflow, or really behavior, and in some cases, even business transformation. So let's talk about technology. One of my favorite books is called The Age of the Platform by Phil Simon, and he really describes a platform as the transformational technology. When I think of all of the transformation, think of iTunes platform, Facebook platform, Amazon platform. All of those platforms really are the foundation of transformation. And really, what is a platform? And I think Phil explains it really well, because we use the term platform all the time. He says that a platform allows people to reach and connect with one another to obtain information, or in some cases, obtain products or obtain service. That's really the notion of a platform. It really changes the way we think. There are really kind of an evolution of platforms, and I think of today's platform as really not just a platform, but the third platform, where billions of users connect with billions of other users on mobile devices using the cloud, mobile. That's really transformational. And as we see business transforming, look at Uber. They've used a platform, iTunes, and all about using this third platform. And modern platforms have a couple of characteristics. I'm going to kind of speed through some of these things. You can read them yourself. But one of the things that's most important, I think, is they know who you are. They respect identity. And that's really the key for some of these platforms. So workflow, I think, is the most interesting thing. And I'm going to do a little test for you. So what I'd like you to do is to read this slide. Everybody read this slide in your head voice, not out loud. Okay? Just read the slide. Just take a second to read the slide. You got it? Now I want you to count the number of F's on the slide. Okay? Okay. How many F's out loud? 3. How many said 3? Okay. How about this? There are the 3, right? There are 6. How come you didn't see the others? Well, because our behavior tends to be focused on kind of the obvious. So as we think about digital transformation and kind of this scotoma idea, transformation really happens when we see the other F's, the 3 other ones that are missing. We miss things. And I think as we relate to customers too, I think as an industry, we're steeped in history, we sort of miss things. I believe, and I've been in the utility industry for most of my life, most of my adult life, almost 40 years. I ran electric operations for a power company, and now I work for a software company, Esri, and I've been 20 years in a power company, almost 15 years in a software company. And in my experience traveling around the world visiting utilities, I think utilities are a combination of high tech, because frankly, this industry is really, really full of high tech and ancient rituals, right? So we adapt the technology. We don't see the other F's. We kind of have a scotoma. And as we think about innovation and transformation, we really, really hold on to those old behaviors. And an example of that is I was in a utility not too long ago, and they asked me to look at one of their workflows, their processes, and it was a very common one at a utility, which is this. When a customer first calls a utility for just a new service, just a regular old new service, a line extension or a service connection, they said that it takes a long time for us to get that service to our customer. And I said, well, how long it does? They said, on average, 256.5 days. So I yelled, that seems awfully long. Well, I didn't. I said it in my head voice because it was a customer. But what it really said is that they haven't really thought about things in a different way. I mean, they had SCADA, they had GIS, they had all kinds of stuff. But what they didn't have was this notion of peeling away that scotoma to look at that new customer connect process in an entirely different way. They could transform that from 256.5 days on average, probably to a couple of days, maybe 10 days. So I always ask that question when I visit utilities. And surprisingly, in this day of digitalization, it still takes an awful long time to get a customer service. And one of the reasons is this thing, this pile of papers. Is this common in utilities? Everywhere I go, I see big, thick stacks of work order folders. And so really it is about how do I peel away a scotoma, take away all of that stuff, and do things in an innovative way. Not just by seeing things as we see them normally, but in a real innovative way. And the other piece of it is the business. Sometimes we even think about business, we should maybe think about our business in a completely different way. Now, I don't know, maybe many of you are too young to know this, but there was a restaurant called Howard Johnson's. Anybody remember that? Remember Howard Johnson's? They were all along the freeways. But they thought they were in the restaurant business, when in fact what they really should have thought about is they want to just get people food so they can get on their way. So literally, Howard Johnson's went completely out of business because they really didn't think the way they should be thinking, like Burger King did. So Burger King basically took over the business because they never thought about transformation of the way they treat their customers, what customers really wanted. And in our business, we think about standardized things, power plants, but yet but new things are happening with solar and distributed resources and all of these things that are challenging our business in a very unique sort of way. Anybody know who that little guy is? What? What is it called? Anybody know that guy? That's the map guy, right, from Dora the Explorer. Who wants to sing the little tune? Yeah, here. Say it louder. So I'm in the GIS business, and we use GIS all the time, right? But I think utilities think about maps and GIS in a digital transition way. They converted their data from paper to digital, so it's a digital transformation, but not really. Because when you think about maps, people love the way the old maps looked. Like this is an old operating map for a utility company. And so what we've done is we've converted that map to GIS. Terrific. Everything looks wonderful, except funny thing, it looks just like the old map. In fact, I've spent a lot of my career convincing people not to worry about how the map looks, but what the information is on the map. And GIS can be transformational if it's used in the right sort of way. In fact, in some cases, I've even thought about, because people love those old maps, to take that little rip, that little tear, and create a symbol for that tear. So that people would know that they love those old-fashioned kind of maps. So this is really digital transition. And not only did they like the way the maps looked, but utilities love to stick maps on walls, right? They love that. But it's physical maps, and the reason they stick them on walls is they want to communicate and collaborate with other people. But with a wall, it kind of inhibits it. Think about a digital transformation of using GIS, and this is kind of what I've thought about my whole life. It's not just about creating a map on the wall, it's about using digitalization to transform the way utilities behave, bringing the maps out. So it's not only a system of record, which is what people think of GIS as, but a system of engagement, engaging your customers, engaging your employees, engaging your mediators, communicating, collaborating, and coordinating with all kinds of different people. So I've got another little quiz for you to end this story. Again, it's to illustrate this notion of digital transformation. So in this case, I'm going to ask you to, out loud, read this slide. Read it really loud. I want you to read this slide really loud, and I want you to complete the phrase on the slide. Everybody ready? All right, here we go. Let's read it. No. Come on, do it right. Do it again. Do it again. No. Do it again. You've got to do it right. Read the slide. Follow the directions. No, 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 no. Let me read it for you. A bird in the hand. How many people saw the two thus? Not many. So the notion of digital transformation is rethink the technology as a platform. Rethink your behavior, like in this case where we're behaving about how we've always thought about that phrase without reading it. And really think about digital transformation as how I can change my business to become competitive. And in my case, using GIS is one way that we can peel away that scotoma and think about GIS, think about all technology as transformational. But do not take the notion of this new technology, this new platform, and apply it to an old problem. So good luck on your journey to digital transformation and not digital transition. Thank you.